Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Here are some quick tips for using Siri on your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So typically you could use Siri on your Mac for doing all sorts of different things. You would activate it by clicking on the Siri icon here at the upper right, and then you would ask Siri something. But there are a few different ways you could set this up. If you go into System Settings and then go to Siri and Spotlight, there's some settings here you should look at. First, you can set Siri to listen for a voice command so you don't have to actually click anything or use a keyboard shortcut to activate it. What you're going to see here depends on what you have on your Mac. For instance, here on my Mac Studio with a Studio Display, I have two different switches, one for headphones, one for the Studio Display microphone. You may see just one option here instead. When you turn this on, then Siri's always listening. Then you can issue a command using these two words here and then speak your question or command. You can also set a keyboard shortcut. Now what you see here may be different depending upon your keyboard. For instance, on my MacBook Air I have the ability to use the dictation button at the top of the keyboard. That's not here on my Mac Studio because of the keyboard I'm using. But you could pick one of these. Note that these first two aren't typical keyboard shortcuts. You actually have to hold Command Space. A quick press of Command Space brings up Spotlight, but holding it will bring up Siri. And then you could also go to Customize and then set your own keyboard shortcut. You could set the language and voice to use for Siri. So select language here and you can select something different than the language settings for your Mac. Set this to the language that you actually speak because it's what it's going to use to try to understand what you said. Now separate from that you could set the voice Siri uses to talk to you. So to do that, click this select button here.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
And then choose the voice variety. What you see here is going to depend on your language setting. So with English being selected, I can still choose one of these varieties here, and then inside of one of those I could choose different voices. Now things really get interesting if you click the button here called Siri Responses. This gives you three switches, and this can customize how you get a response from Siri. So first you can turn off voice feedback. So Siri won't speak things to you. You'll still see the response here at the upper right hand corner. Having this switch turned on will give you what Siri says at the top right corner in addition to the results. And then this one here will actually show you what you said. And this comes with some extra functionality. So with these switched on, let's give this a try. Weather in Santa Fe. So I could see here that Siri was completely silent. It showed exactly what it thought I said. So this is a good way to troubleshoot. If you don't get the right answer, it's useful to know that Siri didn't understand the words that you said and maybe you could try to speak it clearer or say it in a different way. And you also get the text here that Siri would have spoken if I had that first switch turned on. And then you get the result, the weather in this case. Now because you asked it to put the text of what you said up here, you have the ability to correct what you said if it got it wrong. You can click here and sometimes it would show you some alternatives and you could select one of those. But even if it doesn't show you alternatives, you could still select the text there and then change it to something else, press return, and now it gives you the results there. Now having the text that you said displayed is particularly useful when we're doing calculations to make sure that Siri heard you right. 127 plus 54. So I can check to make sure it heard me right there. I could also select the text and change it to something else and get that result. Now if you think it's neat to be able to type to correct Siri, you can also type to ask Siri. You don't have to use your voice. To get access to that, go into System Settings, but instead of going to Siri and Spotlight, go to Accessibility. There's a subcategory of Siri down under General in Accessibility. There you can turn on Type to Siri. So now when you activate Siri using either the button here or the keyboard shortcut, you're actually typing instead of speaking. So by turning this setting on and then in the regular Siri settings having Siri responses set to have voice feedback turned off and then these two on, then you have a completely silent Siri that gives you the maximum amount of information. This is particularly useful if you're in a work environment where other people can hear you talk or hear your computer say something. The same thing if you're using your Mac in a public place and you want to keep your laptop and yourself quiet. And my last tip is to use the Shortcuts app to create your own custom commands. So I'll run shortcuts here, and I of course have all of these different shortcuts I created. Some are simple, some are complex, but whatever you name them becomes a Siri command. So for instance, I have this one called I want to learn something. And if I go into that, it just opens up the Wikipedia random entry page. So whenever I run this shortcut, it will go to some random entry in Wikipedia. But I named it I want to learn something because that's what I want to be able to say to Siri, and then it would activate this shortcut. Now often as soon as you create these shortcuts, it takes a little time for Siri to recognize it. It helps if you close out the shortcut, maybe quit the Shortcuts app, maybe run the shortcut one time from the Shortcuts menu there. But before too long you can actually speak that term and Siri will just run that shortcut. I want to learn something.
Okay.
And there we go. It takes me to a random Wikipedia page. So that's another reason to learn to use the Shortcuts app. You can create all sorts of custom things, name them appropriately, and then you've just added a command to Siri. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.